Well, it's Christmas time, so gather around your small group or your family and let's talk about the true meaning of Christmas. Now, obviously, it's not just about how many lights you can fit on the tree. In this topic, we're going to look at the response of the wise men and the shepherd boys from the original Christmas story to see that really Christmas is about seeking, it's about giving, and it's about sharing. Let's dig in. First of all, the wise men sought Jesus, and did you know that they traveled up to 1,000 miles to find him? So this shows that God's invitation was not limited to religious types. Matthew chapter 2, verse 1, it says, Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod, and about that time some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem, and they said, hey, where's the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him. Two things I want you to notice here. First of all, notice that it's from eastern lands, probably Persia. And scholars think that it was likely that they traveled 750 to 1,000 miles to get there. This wasn't just a casual journey. But the second thing I want you to see is the note on verse 1. Another word for wise men is royal astrologers. Now, isn't it interesting that astrologers would be in the Bible? Here's the point. These guys weren't followers of Yahweh. They weren't Jewish. They weren't followers of the God of the Bible. And again, this shows that God's invitation isn't limited to religious types. Maybe that speaks to some of you listening to this video. Maybe you're the kind of person who goes to church around Christmas and around Easter, but you're not really the church-going type. Well, you're like the wise men in this story. Believe it or not, God is interested in being found by you. I love the Old Testament verse found in Jeremiah 29:13. This is God speaking, and he says, if you look for me wholeheartedly, you will find me. That's what the wise men did, and that's what I encourage you to do this Christmas season. Here's the second thing. The wise men gave Jesus extravagant gifts, gold for his royalty, frankincense for his divinity, and myrrh for his humanity. Now, we all think about gifts at Christmas time, but did you know the first gift exchange is right there in Matthew 2? In verse 11, it says that the wise men entered the house where Jesus was, and they saw the child with his mother Mary. They bowed down and worshiped him, and they opened their treasure chests and gave him those three gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But there was significance behind those three gifts. Gold was traditionally something that people would bring for a king. So the wise men recognized that Jesus was not just another baby. And frankincense in the Old Testament was related to worship. It was considered an offering to God. And that last gift, myrrh, was a spice used for embalming the dead. Now, the wise men might not have known it, but Jesus came into the world to die for humanity. And that's the real significance of myrrh. But maybe the biggest point is that these gifts were truly extravagant. They were very expensive back in the day. Yes, they represented royalty and divinity and humanity. But at the most fundamental level, they represented a heart of giving. And that's a good question for us today. Do you give sacrificially? That's a part of the true meaning of Christmas. And one more thing, the shepherds, those boys, they shared Jesus even though they were nobodies in their day. This was the natural response to the good news that was shared with them. Now we see this in the third gospel in Luke. It says in chapter 2, verse 8, that night there were shepherds staying in the fields nearby, guarding their flocks of sheep. An angel of the Lord suddenly appeared among them, and the radiance of the Lord's glory surrounded them. They were afraid, but the angel reassured them. He said, don't be afraid. I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all the people. The Savior, yes, the Messiah, the Lord, has been born today in Bethlehem, the city of David. Now, many of us have read this passage, or we've at least heard the story thousands of times. But did you know that shepherds were outcasts in society 2,000 years ago? Even all the way back in Genesis chapter 46, it says that people despised shepherds. They were the lowlifes, they were the scum. But look, the angels went to the shepherds. They went to the regular people to tell them about the birth of the Savior. That means that God cares about regular people. And the cool thing about this story is later on in verse 17, after the shepherds saw baby Jesus, they told everyone what had happened and what the angel had said to them about this child. In other words, it was the natural response to the good news that was shared with them that they would also turn around and go share the good news with other people around them. And so here's the question for you. What do you think the true meaning of Christmas is? It's not about the lights. It's not about the gifts. It's not really even just about family. It's about seeking Jesus, no matter who you are or how far from him you feel. It's about giving sacrificially because that's what Jesus did for us. And it's about sharing the good news of Jesus, just like the shepherd boys did, because God shared his life with us when he came to live among us on Christmas 2,000 years ago.